Hello again. Welcome to the Bernie Miklasz Show here on YouTube. Hope you're all doing well on this Friday and hope you got a good weekend planned. Take some time and relax, right? All right. A couple things I want to get to today. Actually, it's one thing. Let's get back to talking some Cardinals baseball. I didn't do that yesterday. Did a Mizzou video, did a Blues video, but it's back to Cardinals baseball because that's what you all want the most based on the numbers. I'm going to start by saying I really respect the work and the reporting done by Katie Wu, covers the Cardinals for The Athletic. She gave us an enjoyable read in her latest piece, which I saw Friday morning. Basically, Katie updated her roster projections analysis for what the Cardinals could look like on opening day. And this obviously is not, she wasn't predicting the final roster, but she was letting us in on some developments based on her observations and her conversations with Cardinals people. Obviously, things can change, which is, another reason why we're going to see a lot of roster projections from a lot of media between now and the March 27th opener. And of course, injuries can change any plan. So, this is not some final prediction, but I do know this, that Katie Wu is well informed. And so, I'm always interested in what she has to say about things like this. So a couple of things caught my eye. Number one, the fifth starting rotation spot is a battle between Andre Palante and Michael McGreevy. Yeah, I got a lot to say about this, so I'm gonna return to it. Believe me, I will take care of it. So you stay with me, and you'll hear what I have to say about this. And I break it down in a number of different ways. Okay, that's number one. Number two, based on Wu's report, looks like the Cardinals are shying away from slotting Lars Nootbaar in center field. Manager Ali Marmol has played an interesting game here before the start of spring training. I said here, and I also wrote, that I had a difficult time believing the Cardinals would actually commit to Nootbaar playing in center field for, a lot of reasons, including maybe their concern over injuries, whatever. And he's not as good defensively as Michael Ciani, or probably not even Victor Scott, now that Victor Scott has really improved his footwork thanks to daily workouts, training sessions with Cardinals coach John Jay. So I had a hard time believing they'd actually go with Nootbaar. In fact, when I did a Victor Scott video, you may remember that I said, hey, I'm not going to talk about Nootbaar in center because I think ultimately, it'll come down to either Ciani or Victor Scott. So it looked like my first instinct was correct. Nootbaar in left field, but he'll likely play some games in center. But they seem to be shying away after trying to give the impression that they were serious about Nootbaar in center. Now they're trying to backtrack on that and some of the stuff they're telling the media. So, like I said, unless Marmol and President of Baseball Operations John Mozeliak have another change in their thinking, it looks like Newton left, Jordan Walker in right, and then a competition between Victor Scott to second and Michael Ciani in center field. Now, given the manager's fondness for Ciani and his defense, it's impossible for me to rule out Ciani winning the starting job, which probably means Scott would go to Memphis, start the season in the minors. He's having a great camp. I hope I'm wrong here. Scott has been the best position player in camp so far, but he better keep it up, because if Scott goes into any kind of funk and stops hitting well, or maybe makes one false step in the outfield, that's all Marmol needs, right? That's all he's got to see. Well, Victor's won for his last 11, or he's like, oh, well, Victor took the wrong angle on that ball. He's going. I'm telling you, Marmol's going to be looking for reasons to go with his guy, Ciani. And if that happens, the reason I'm hesitating, because I want to collect my thoughts. If that happens, I'm talking about Scott going down to the minors. Ali will dust off his quote from before spring training, which was, quote, we have to do what's best for Victor, which means Victor to Memphis, right? Because he wouldn't say that. In other words, he wouldn't say that if he thought, being a starting center fielder in the major leagues is the best thing for Victor. No, he's saying that as a way to, he's kind of revealing, he doesn't even know it, revealing what his thoughts are about Victor. And he went into camp mentally ticketing Victor Scott for Memphis. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. And it does not mean it can happen. I hope Victor Scott continues to tear it up, because I want to see him put a lot of pressure on the manager to make the right decision here. Siani's a dude who's got in his major league career, granted not like 1,000 at bats or anything, but 46% below average offensively in the majors, and he was no great shakes offensively in the minor leagues either. Scott's got more all-around talent and potential and a much higher ceiling than does Siani. And in a recent video, I talked about this, and you all liked the video from what I could tell. Let me say it again quickly. If this is supposed to be a runway season for the Cardinals, well, wouldn't Victor Scott represent what the dang runway is supposed to be all about? A full opportunity for talented young players? No, I don't think that runway is, as I keep saying, the runway thing is a marketing pitch. It's not really the reality. So we'll get back to some other stuff along those lines later. Is there still the chance of Nootbaar getting lots of regular season reps in center field? Well, of course, because the Cardinals are all over the place. They say one thing and then they do another, then they circle back, they change it again, then give them another week, and then they've changed it the fourth or fifth time. It's an organization from Mozeliak down to the dugout. They don't have a conviction as far as a specific plan. They bounce around because I think they're fearing criticism, or they're fearing fans being angrier and buying fewer tickets. So they're trying to give everyone little handouts to keep them thinking they're going to do certain things, even though they probably aren't going to do those things, or they don't want to do those things, even if they end up doing it. When a friend recently asked me about the picture in center field, he was very curious and thought if I had some insight. And I said, yeah, I have some insight, but the insight, you're going to be disappointed into it. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, number one, I don't know what the picture is in center field because the Cardinals don't know, because they keep changing their story. And number two, no matter what the Cardinals tell us, don't believe it. Or be very careful about believing it, because depending on the day of the week, they'll have a different story to tell, and it might be a recycling job, and they get lost in their own spin cycle, and they come out of the spin cycle, and they're back where they started. The Cardinals really underestimate the intelligence of their fans. I mean, there's no other way around it. So I hope, as I said, I hope Victor Scott II can keep pressure on Marmol to win that starting job. Don't make it easy for the manager, Victor. Keep going. Number three, Nolan Gorman's going to be used a lot at DH this season. Again, this is nothing new. Once Nolan Arenado, once it was clear that Nolan Arenado was going to be here, at least at the start of the season, probably well into the season, maybe the entire season. I don't know. I don't even want to talk about that. I'm burned out on it. But anyway, with Gorman having to go back to second, he's going to be used a lot at DH, and the Cardinals are not in any way trying to play coy with that. They refer to him as second base DH. And so DH will be a big part of his season. And it's not a surprise with Arenado at third base, as we said. Gorman no longer can be the regular third baseman, but he'll get a few starts over there. And so when Gorman is DHing, that means, and you got Nootbaar in left field, that means a lot more action for Brendan Donovan at second base. And with Nootbaar in left field and Donnie at second base, when Gorman is cast into the DH role, it means fewer at-bats, I would imagine, for Alec Burleson. Listen, I know Burley faded late last season, and I know that I'm not trying to tell you all that he's Jim Tomei or something, okay? But on a team that had lousy offense, maybe this is why he was near the top of a couple categories. But still, he led the Cardinals last year with 78 runs batted in, and with Paul Goldschmidt no longer here, Burleson hit more home runs last season, 21, than any of the Cardinals returning from last year who are in the camp. So that's the guy that could lose out in terms of losing at bats in this endless game of Mozeliak's musical chairs. Goes on and on. Hear the music stop. Oh, you're not in the lineup today. You didn't get a seat in the lineup. All right, another player that could be impacted by the Arenado domino effect is the catcher Ivan Herrera, because Lucan Baker's I think highly likely to make the roster as a right-handed bat to be used at DH against lefty starters, and as a late inning bench guy that come out there and take on lefty relievers when the Cardinals maybe need a long ball or extra base hit. And with Baker on the club, there's not going to be as many opportunities to use Herrera as a DH. Although he can, if he's not starting, he could always pinch hit, yada, yada, yada. So I wonder, this is another video for another day. In fact, I'm going to save it. Maybe save it for next week, talking about, how do we think the at-bats are going to be allocated among the two catchers in 2025, Herrera and Pedro Pages. Please let me pause to reiterate something. When the Cardinals couldn't trade Arenado, we knew it would rearrange the layout in terms of where the Cardinals wanted to place the furniture. The Arenado return is the Cardinals moving the pieces all around. None of that's surprising. They still don't know where to put the furniture, right? So those ramifications we knew about, well, they're happening. That said, now here's where we get to the part I really wanted to chew on. That said, I don't know how that would affect Victor Scott, but I've talked enough about him because we're talking center field. But I don't want to keep harping on that, and I apologize. So let me get back to what I really wanted to say. So we know that there would be ramifications of Arenado staying put. But what the heck does that have to do with the starting rotation? According to Katie Wu's projection, and I tell you, she's well informed, and I trust her reporting and her instincts after collecting intel down there in Jupiter and on the phone and the text messages and everything else. According to Katie Wu's projection, 4 slots are set: Sonny Gray, Eric Fetty, Miles Michaelis, and Steven Matz. First, about Michaelis and Matz. John Mozeliak is stubbornly determined to use Michaelis and Matz as starters because the Cardinals would be paying the two a combined $30 million in salary this season. That is correct. Between the two of them, $30 million. So if Michaelis and Matz are both in the rotation, it's because of payroll politics. There is nothing else to say about it. It has nothing to do with performance. This is not about merit. It's about Mo's ego, and it's about payroll politics. And I've been saying this a long time. You see other teams designating like high salaried pitchers and players, designating them for assignment and basically eating the money. The Cardinals very rarely have done this. Very rarely have done this. And most of it has to do with pride. Just don't want to admit the contracts were a mistake. I'm sorry. That's how I feel. They would probably say, no, that's not right. That's how I feel because I've seen it too many times. So let's talk about this. You get to a situation where you have 2 young pitchers, and Palante's not young as in like 22 or something. And even McGreevy's got some years on him because he was in the minors for a while. But you got 2 young pitchers with a lot of talent. And Palante's already proven himself largely to an extent. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Let's talk about Michaelis and Matz real quick. Over the last 2 seasons, among major league starters that have worked at least 300 innings, Michaelis ranks 41st out of 43 with a 5.04 ERA, and he ranks 42nd out of 43 in strikeout percentage. Okay, that's the guy that's got a guaranteed job in your rotation. That guy with those numbers. That guy. Those numbers. The only number that matters is the salary figure that Mo has to pay Michaelis. Can't admit that he made a mistake there. Steven Matz, he was signed to a 4-year deal worth $44 million before the 2021 season. In his first 3 seasons as a Cardinal, he averaged 11 starts and 6 relief appearances. That's right. He was on the mound as far as either starting or relieving an average of 17 times in those 17 times per season in those 3 years. His starting pitcher ERA was 4.88. Right-handed batters punished him. A lot of home runs. Matz has been better in relief, but we're not talking about a lot of appearances here. He can't stay healthy enough to really matter. So with Michaelis and Matz protected by Mo's payroll politics, like 2 younger, healthier, and more capable starters have to fight this out to get the 5th spot. If Katie Wu's instincts are on the mark, and she wouldn't have written it unless she felt strongly about her instincts and the intel she was picking up down in Jupiter. So where's the runway? Once again, I know injuries can change it. And listen, I do know, you don't have to tell me this. I do know this. I know Palante and McGreevy will both have opportunities to start this season. I'm thinking Palante will be in the rotation. But how much of an opportunity will both of them get? I mean, and I can't say for sure that Palante will be in the rotation because the Cardinals are like sort of putting the word out, oh, it's down between Palante and McGreevy. I mean, I would expect Palante to win that over McGreevy, but that doesn't mean it's still right because McGreevy's the guy left out, and I'm not sure what he's done to get left out of this, right? The cards, and again, pulling, like, not having Palante in the rotation, I find it hard to believe, even though I believe with the Cardinals anything is possible. They're so cuckoo, I wouldn't put any money down on trying to predict what they're going to do with rosters. But here's the thing. I assume Palante would be an automatic for the rotation at the start of the season. Why? Well, let's go with it. He moved into the rotation last year on May the 29th. From that point to the end of the season, he had the team's best starting pitching ERA from May 29th till the end. He had 20 starts, best starter in terms of ERA in the rotation. Not only that, my friends, Palante's 3.56 starter ERA in those 20 starts, 10th best in the National League, 21st in the majors over that time. And that wasn't enough to secure a place in the 2025 rotation. Like, in other words, this wasn't sort of an automatic. But do the Cardinals have so much great starting pitching? You take a guy, and remember, they used Palante only because they had to, and it was his idea. It wasn't their idea, it was his idea. I want to work as a starter. Let me prepare as a starter. So the Cardinals they're so pitching rich with starting pitchers. You're going to take a dude, when you finally gave him a chance to be a starter, he turned in the 10th best ERA in the National League among starters over the final 4 months of the season. And he's got to fight to get back into the rotation. Are you serious? Well, again, they're the cuckoo Cardinals. So yeah, they're serious. This combination of stubbornness and incompetence, once again shows us what a mistake it was for Bill DeWitt to keep John Mozeliak around. And when Mo leaves, I'm going to write about all the great things he did along the way. But man, just got stale. And I think, getting beaten down so much, I think it's caused him to just, I don't know if he can have a clear-headed view when he makes decisions anymore. Because some of this stuff is just flat out strange. And it has been strange. So let's talk about McGreevy for a minute. He looked great in his 3 major league starts last season. I know it's only 3, but damn, the dude was money. He looked really good. And you're like, and it left you wanting to see more. He could strike people out. He's getting ground balls. He was poised. He's very aggressive. He pounded the strike zone. And listen, the Cardinals were pretty much done after losing 7 of 8 games during a stretch that ended August the 20th. And this was a really good time for Mo to say, okay, let's get McGreevy back up here. And then Mo would plug McGreevy in, give him about 6 weeks or so, to make regular starts, gain experience that would be critical perhaps in his development or important. But McGreevy didn't get a start, and he wasn't called up until later than that, and he didn't get a start until September 24th, and then another on September 29th. His last 2 starts came in the final week of the season. I mean, they missed an opportunity to let him get some more major league experience. Hey, the Cardinals were way out of the wild card race, but gosh forbid the manager's got to go to Miles Michaelis and tell him to have a seat because we're going with McGreevy here towards the end of the year. Oh, you can't do that. No, you can't do that, right? Cuckoo. I tell you what, the Cardinals are such a comedy show these days. At least they're giving me something to chuckle about, and that's good for my stress. It really is. Good for my blood pressure. So I appreciate that, I guess. I don't think I would appreciate it if I'm somebody that's buying tickets to go to Busch Stadium all the time. See, this is a situation the Cardinals have chosen to put themselves in. After deciding to part ways, listen to this carefully, after deciding to part ways with starting pitchers Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn after the 2024 season, so after subtracting 2 starters, Mo still hasn't made room, for sure, for McGreevy. And Palante does not have a guarantee, 100% guarantee of being in the rotation. And this is after you basically said bye-bye to Gibson and Lynn. And Palante, is not apparently is not 100% assured of being in the rotation, even though he had the 10th best ERA among National League starting pitchers the last 4 months of 2024. This is just a doozy, even by the Cardinals' normal standards of ineptitude. It's a doozy. And one other thing before I have one more thing to talk about here, but let me throw this in because, yeah, I've had this thought a lot. So you've had this thought a lot. So before you say or I say, well, they can move Matz to the bullpen. I hear you, except, they already have 3 lefties set for the bullpen: Romero, King, and Libator. Libator's down there because A, he's got a chance to be really good, and B, they wouldn't make room for him in the rotation either. But do you really need 4 lefty relievers in the bullpen? I think not. But nope, it comes down to this. Mo wants Matz and Miklasz in the rotation, and as he sets the roster, and he's going to do everything he can to squeeze something out of that $30 million he's paying both of them this year. All right, final thing, and I think this is fun too. I've been trying to keep track of Cardinals messaging, and you know that because I always call them out on their messaging that they change a week later and all that stuff. Reset, no transition, this, that. They're all over the place. And so I'm going to start calling this the propaganda watch. So I have one item here for you too. In the last couple of weeks, I've seen at least 3 references to this. The Cardinals want to go with a starting rotation early in the season because they believe it will help get them off to a positive start in 2025. I mean, that's been said and written a few times. Well, they think it makes sense. The right thing to do is to go with these experienced guys because that'll help us get out of the gate better. We can kind of get the season off to a good push. Once again, do these people think we're all stupid? Apparently. Let me put this out there. Remember what I just told you. No, you go with the veteran starters early in the season because you want to get off to that good start. Okay, let's go with this. On May 11th last season, the Cardinals lost a game in Milwaukee, and at that point, they were 15-24, 39 games. And except for the 2 starts by Zach Thompson, the other 37 games were handled by the senior starters: Gray, Miklasz, Lynn, Gibson, and Matz. So with this veteran group leading the charge, the Cardinals had a .388 winning percentage through 39 games. It was the worst in the National League Central Division, and only Colorado and Miami were worse at that point among National League teams. And you might be wondering, well, maybe, Bernie, because they didn't hit, right? Yeah, that's true. But what role did these experienced veteran starters that you need in the rotation at the beginning of the season, what role or what factor were they in the 15-24 start? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm here to serve. On May 11th, the Cardinals had a 4.49 starting pitching ERA that ranked 24th out of 30 major league teams. They were 22nd in strikeout rate. They were 25th in home runs allowed per 9 innings, and I think they were 24th in wins above replacement. So the Cardinals, even though a group of veteran experienced starters weren't any good early in the season last season, right? It wasn't until Palante got in there on May 29th that they started to get some better stuff. So here we are a season later, and the Cardinals are once again trying to sell the fans and the media on the ideas like, well, it's really important to have our most experienced guys in those rotation spots because, that will help us get out of there strong. Then we have a good April. We have a good April and May. You mean just like last year? Yeah, that worked out darned great, didn't it? Pardon me, my sarcasm. I can't help it. Final thought here. If an animated Disney character, any of the Disney characters were sports fans, if they could actually feel and experience being a sports fan, I know who Pinocchio's favorite team would be. Your St. Louis Cardinals. That'll do it for me. Probably until Monday morning, unless there's some big news I got to account for. But thank you, as always, for watching, and please have a wonderful weekend.